Okay, well, welcome, Sav. It's an interview I've been looking forward to for the UKBC in a way because you're breeding something or a type of budgie that I've never bred.
Okay.
I've never had rares. The rarest thing I ever had was an albino,
Yeah.
but I was still aiming for exhibition side.
Yeah, of
So
course.
I think this could be quite a good insight. And I think, as you know, I'm quite passionate about getting this new show off the ground.
Mm. Yeah, that
Um,
should be very
so
exciting.
yeah, and it's all about that missing link. So, but we'll go through that in a little bit later on. So, what I think we'll do is we'll share my screen. No, hold on.
Yeah.
If I can get the right one, might have to cut that bit out. That's better.
There we go. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, you did a few question and answers with the UKBC so far, haven't you? Some
I have.
Facebook lives and bits
Yeah,
and
it's been
pieces.
really
So
fun. That was
yeah,
that was made for me the first time I ever did a live. So
yeah, yeah. I've
yeah,
got one
no.
very similar for my interview, so
Yeah.
they'll be very similar across the video. But yeah, so I mean, I think I'd like to know a bit about the Sav that we don't really know much about. So, um, how did you start with budgies, really? And I believe there's your first ever
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, that was my first ever budgie. I never actually wanted birds. And at the time, I mean, in a family, I've grown up with cats mainly, big cat family. Nan's had cats, great nan's had cats, And I moved into my first home and I wanted a pet. And at the time, the boyfriend that I was with, he had quite bad allergies. And he said, if you want a pet, then we can get a budgie because I've had a budgie before and it didn't seem to cause too much issues with my allergies. So I said, okay, then, get a budgie. I've never had a budgie before. And as you can see from the picture, the little budgie was perched on sandpaper, sand sheet covers on the perches, which is not good. So we went out, left the house, and it was just a flippant comment that we agreed on and was going to get a budgie. And I lived in a flat at the time, and my flat neighbour directly opposite had put a bird cage out. How coincidental. You could not have made it up. Honestly, I literally walked out the door and there was a budgie cage on a stand outside her door. And I was like, it just felt like it was meant to be. So I knocked on the door and I asked, you getting rid of the budgie cage? And she said, yeah, my little boy had the budgie and the budgie passed away and we're not getting any more. She said the stand is a little bit sort of sun bleached, but it's good. So I took it in and I was really excited, and cleaned up the cage, and then that was that. It was a case to go straight down to the pet shop. So terrible, pet shop, and get Bones, which is what I named her.
Right.
And I say her, she was actually sold to me as a male.
Yeah.
I was told, yeah, blue cere, male, brown cere, female.
Yeah.
And she was a baby, and she obviously had a pale blue cere, so she was sold to me as a male. And I was watching the TV show Bones at the time, and I was like, oh, I've got a boy, but I'm going to name it Bones anyway after the TV show. And ironically, the female cast member who's called Bones is actually a female. So
Yeah.
we had a female budgie. Unfortunately, we only had her a couple of months, and she passed away on Boxing Day, I believe it was, of
Oh,
the next
crumbs.
Christmas. Yeah, so that
Yeah.
was quite a difficult time losing her. I did everything wrong. There was sandpaper sheets at the bottom of the cage, and there was sandpaper covers on the perch. There was, seed bell. It was
Yeah.
a very kind of poor setup. She had the multivitamin drops, a very typical pet shop package that
Yeah.
you get when you go into a pet shop and you're kind of palmed with all of this stuff and told this is what you should buy. And I did actually buy, before Bones passed away, I was like, oh, I would like to breed. So I actually did get another female. Lo and behold, I ended up with 2 females, but I didn't actually realize I had 2 females until about a year down the line when I learned how to correctly gender a budgie.
Yeah.
So looking back on photos, I was like, well, I wasn't going to have much luck with breeding those 2 because they're both female. But yeah, Bones passed away. We kept Bella, which was the partner. And then it just went on from there, really. And I ended up going to the pet shop a couple of months later, and I bought another 4, and then another 1, and I ended up with 6. And I bought a bigger cage, and here we are, 12 years later, and I've got over 100. So
yeah. Well, let's have a look. We've got some pictures here of your setup.
yeah,
And,
my lovely bedroom.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, is this a standard sort of shed and then lined out, or is it brick built?
No, this was built from scratch. Originally, I had an indoor sort of bespoke shed, and then we had an indoor area on either side. The middle bit was the shed, and I had some breeding cages. I think I had 6 breeding cages, that the wooden ones that all sort of were doubles, and I had 3 doubles right in front of me. It was a really tiny gap. You literally walked in the door and that's all you had. You couldn't even open your arms and it was there. And then either side of that was an indoor flight area, and then outside of that was an exterior flight. And on one side I had canaries and finches, and then the other side I had the budgies. And I had that for many, many years, and we ended up having a problem with mice, and it got really bad. I mean, the mice, our mesh was double meshed inside and out, and it was the really, really small mesh. And what would happen was we'd get mice in, and they'd live there, and they would get pregnant and breed, and they got into the walls. I had Celotex lined insulation, and they'd built their own tunnel system through the walls of the aviary, and it was horrendous. And then obviously I started noticing visual signs of these mice being in there, and we actually found a nest of mice that had taken up residency in finch boxes. I would say about 4 foot up on the wall.
Wow.
Where there was banks of finch nests, and these mice were just nesting next to finches. And I just said, enough's enough.
Yeah.
And I applied it. I sort of saved up, and about £6,000 later, I invested. And I said to my dad, because it was my dad that had made the original building, and I said, I just need it to be enclosed. It's, the aviaries are lovely in the summer, but when you get into the colder months, the wetter months, and you're getting all that rain and the weather's going into the aviary, your substrate is getting wet, it's creating mold, it's getting smelly, it's just not a nice environment to be in. And not only that as well, you had fireworks. I live in, quite city, quite in a city, so a lot of people have bonfires and fireworks, and it would cause quite,
I've done exactly the same now. I've done exactly the same, and they say exhibition birds don't use aviaries, but mine did. And I think, to the point, some of them used it too much and weren't, I didn't want to feed them out there. So, we had to flush them in at night and everything. But outdoor aviaries can be hard work unless they are so built robustly that nothing can get in there, not even the rain, So, but no, I mean, it looks a lovely aviary. And are the lights down the back just standard LEDs, or are they?
Yeah, they are. I want to look into sort of the UV lighting that Kevin's been talking about, but because of the way that my cages are set up, I'd need to kind of configure a way of getting them in between the cages rather than laying on top of the cages.
Yeah, because you're all right with those vertical ones that along the back. So, but it's
always a work in progress.
Yeah. And that
so
is
that's
that one of your Yeah, one of your indoor flights.
Yeah. So I only have the one indoor flight now. I do have a smaller one on the other end of the bird room, but that's just for finches and canaries now. Well, say finches and canaries. I've actually rehomed the finches. I'm keeping canaries and diamond doves, but only a few. And it's a lot smaller. I mean, we got rid of the interior flights completely because the birds just would not use them. They were deciding to sit out on the exterior flights. It was getting cold. So we just completely remodeled what we had. We just knocked the whole lot out. And I have just the one big flight now for the budgies, and yeah, they do
Yeah,
their thing in there. I'm constantly going in and changing the bits that are made out of wood because they chew it and
chew it.
destroy it,
Yeah, that's
taking
right.
things out, putting things in. But yeah, they absolutely love it.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
is
so
that
that's a
looking back down the other way?
Yeah, that's the other way. You can see at the very end, there's a very small flight there. That's where the canaries and the diamond doves are. But all the cages that you can see, the big main cages at the front are the nurseries, which is where I put my babies. And then there's smaller cages that are on the wall in the middle, and they're my monitoring cages. So any birds that are in the flight that don't look so well, if they're, sort of getting bullied
Yeah,
away from the food, or just, your birds, that you sort of walk in and you think, that bird's not right. And I'll take
yeah,
that bird out and it'll go straight into a monitoring cage. And it's right there as soon as I walk into the bird room, and I can see them. So there's no messing about.
yeah.
But yeah, that's a closer my
Yeah,
breeding
so
area.
I can say you've got it set up as if you're doing some sort of podcast or
Yeah, that was my
videoing.
first UKBC live. So
Yeah,
that was the first ever time I did a live, and I wanted to get nice pictures and the setup. The breeding cages that you see on the left hand side, they're actually gone now. I've removed them completely because there was 24 breeding cages in there and it was just too much for me. So
yeah,
we got rid of that bank on the side. It's opened the room up a lot more because it took a lot of the space, because that's actually hanging on the interior bit of the flight,
yeah,
which is just on the left. So we took those out. They went, and now I've just got the 20 now.
yeah, yeah. Same as me. I've always had 20 for
It's
a
a nice,
very
easy number to manage.
it is. It is. I mean, I can feed and water my birds in about an hour,
Mm.
and then I spend another hour sat there watching them and mucking about doing this, that, and the
Yeah,
other. So
getting distracted,
yeah,
taking
yeah,
pictures.
yeah. Oh, and there's another shot.
Yeah, so it's quite narrow, but I'm only 5'2", and so I can walk along and
Yeah,
be in there at my own leisure, and it's big enough.
yeah, yeah. Good. Okay, so we've spoken about or we're going to talk about how you breed some of these rarer budgies, but
Mm,
you know, it, have you now you're thinking about the show because I know that the show is quite new.
yeah.
Well, it's brand new as such. But what have you decided what aim you've got with these birds? So I know we've spoken about deportment and color and that. So
Mhm.
have you changed the way you're thinking? Are you still sticking to whatever your plan was before the UKBC?
It all depends on the type of bird, really. I've got a few projects that are going on that have come along since acquiring more rare types. So what we can see in this picture is one of my Japanese crested hagoromos. And the main thing for these birds is colour. You have to have a nice colour on them. Um, then you've got to worry about the flowers on the back of the bird. Now, when you breed Japanese crested hagoromos, there are no guarantees that you are going to get a quality bird. If you've got Japanese crested parents and they're both visually perfect, there are no guarantees that you are going to get a offspring that's crested, that you're going to get offspring that have got fantastic flowers on both sides of the wings. It really is a gamble. So you could have offspring that have got no crest, you could but have got flowers. You can have offspring that have got one flower on one wing and nothing on the other. Or you can have flowers or feathers that are too long and lay completely flat, even though they are technically there, they're not sticking up. So this particular mutation are really quite difficult to breed in good quality. Um, this particular one is quite a good quality bird. It's got nice flowers, it's got a nice colour. But yeah, you can get, a nest of say 6, and you may only get 1 or 2 out of that. That's
Yeah.
actually good enough.
See, there's a variety that I can't imagine would be any good in the show bird categories, because we're breeding these birds with such long feather. I can't imagine the flowers even standing up.
No,
They would probably just lie on the
like
back
that.
because they'd be so long.
Hmm.
But no, it's a they fascinate me. And I remember seeing, I think it was a Gina and Alan Adams crest many years
Hmm.
ago, and it blew me away. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a perfect crest,
Hmm.
and it was a good budgie as well. I think it was,
Yeah.
I'm sure it was an opaline light green. Um, I mean, it might not have been theirs. I might apologies, allergy if it's not yours. But yeah, it just blew me away. And I've always had a soft spot for crest, but there is so much wastage.
Mm.
You end up with lots of splits, and I mean, and it
Yeah,
sounds like this is
absolutely.
very, very much the same.
Yeah, because you've not only got the crest in the mix, but you've got the flowers that behave in exactly the same way. So
Yeah,
to get jackpot, you really need to have both flowers on both wings that are standing up and full, and you also need the
yeah,
crests as well. And obviously you're breeding crest to crest, so a lot of the time you end up with double crest. You can
yeah,
end up with triple crest, which I've got an example of in the pictures as well. I It's the first time it's ever happened to me that I've got a
yeah.
triple crest,
Just
but
then they're just, unless the crests, even on a normal, are sat in the right place, it just makes it look just wrong to me.
they are a very much Marmite bird. You either love them or you hate them.
I
Um,
do. I mean, I really do love a good crest, and
yeah,
that's where it stops. It's all the wastage that I would drive
yeah,
me up the wall.
yeah. I mean,
It really would.
this is a reason, with the exhibition birds, they take so much work to show.
Yeah,
You do get the wastage because, you've got birds that are carriers or are crest breds or whatever. Um, but with so much in the pet, you don't have that wastage as much because you can always use them. You're
yeah,
not needing them for a particular purpose other than, to for yourself, really.
yeah, yeah. So we got one of your exhibition ones, or
Yeah, so this bird, his name's Osiris. He's an easily clear body, and he was bred from a hen that I got from Ricky Anderson. I just fell in love because I had Texas clear bodies, and then I was told about easilies and that it was dominant, and my mind I just couldn't get my head around it. Like, I've been breeding Texas clear bodies, and they're sex linked, and now we've got a easily clear body, which is a dominant, and this is mad. And so Ricky gave me my first easily clear body hen, which I named Dolly, and I absolutely loved her, loved her.
yeah,
And I'm not a huge fan of the exhibitions. I can appreciate the work that goes into them, but I do prefer the smaller ones. For me, easier to breed, just a little bit more fun. We can have fun with
yeah,
it. And anyway, this was a bird that I bred from Dolly, and his name's Osiris. He's got quite a long tail. I don't know if
yeah,
it's just the picture that's making him look like that. But he, as a bird, I mean, he was just gorgeous. And then when I decided that I was going to actually give up my exhibition birds, he went off to Kevin Eatwell, and Kevin's got him now.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
It is.
he's actually,
It is a difficult one because we got these long tails in the thing, but without it being in a show cage, it's difficult to
yeah,
to see. But it does, to me, it does look like a long tail.
yeah.
But they've all got their uses. I mean, I don't think there's a stud in this UK or Europe that haven't got long tails and long flight birds.
Mm,
They've just, you've got to manage them properly. You
exactly
know,
right. Yeah.
so.
Yeah. But yeah, he was
um,
gorgeous. I love his color was gorgeous, and like I say, Kevin's got him now, and I got an update from him this morning of the bird that's called us. His name's Osiris. Actually sitting on one of his vet tech shoulders, so
Yeah,
that he's doing his job, and he's fertilized loads of eggs. He's done really well. He's been with numerous hens, and he's actually kickstarted the easily clear body project for Kevin. So I'm absolutely
brilliant.
over the moon. Yeah,
Yeah,
because he would have been wasted with me. So I'm glad that
yeah,
he's
but that's right. It's like I said, and that's where you're developing your strategy, your plan, your future projects.
yeah, see what works for me and
Yeah,
what works in my
yeah,
bedroom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we've got here is this is a German fallow rainbow. This is a little baby one. And you can
Yeah.
start seeing that yellow face or golden face, whatever it was. I can't remember which bird that was, but coming through on the top there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
So,
that was found completely by mistake.
oh right.
Yeah, I had no idea. It had come from a mauve rainbow that I'd bought in a pet shop, and it was paired to another rainbow. And this was quite a few years ago now, and they had, babies, and it was really the only rainbow pair I had. I really liked the rainbows. I was getting into them quite a lot, and a friend of mine wanted four of them. So he took two sisters, two brothers, all related. And I said to him, they are related. Don't let them breed together. And he said, no, no, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. And he put them into his aviary. And, the problem with aviary birds and aviary breeding is you have no control over who breeds with who.
No.
And so what happened was a brother and sister pairing paired up, and they produced a red-eyed baby. And he got quite angry and sent me a message and said, this is off your rainbows. Why has it got red eyes? This, it's wrong, it's wrong. And I was like, at the start, I was like, oh, it could have been bred with a Lutino, or, you could have albino somewhere in there. We don't know until this bird feathers out. But I was kind of chuckling to myself, and I was like, well, I told you not to breed like that,
Yeah.
but you did anyway. And then it started to color up, and he sent me another picture, and I was like, wow, I've never seen anything like that before. The picture was then sent to a friend of mine, and then that friend sent it off to Sam Wilds, and Sam Wilds come back and said, it's a German fallow rainbow.
Mm.
So it came from originally not this particular bird, but my very first German fallow rainbow came from a pairing between brother and sister, which just so happened to both be carrying German fallow, come from the original
Yeah.
rainbow cockbird, the mauve that I'd got from the pet shop. So over years, I've developed the family. I've bred out to come back in and do it all safely. I've been having many conversations with Kevin and Ricky, and how I can go around it and bring it out safely.
Yeah.
And I've got three now. I did have four, and I did lose a cockbird. I've got two hens, and I did have two cocks, and I did lose a cockbird, unfortunately, a month ago, and I was absolutely gutted. And I've actually
Yeah.
sent that bird off to be taxidermied.
Oh right.
So
Oh wow.
I'll be getting him back next year.
Yeah.
Just
So
for personal achievement, really. I wanted him
yeah.
sort of back.
So in theory, I suppose in theory, you've actually bred a new mutation.
Yes, as far as I'm aware, they're not in
Yeah.
the UK anywhere. There was a little
No.
article in Cage and Avery about it, and asking if anyone wanted to come forward to say that they had the same. But no, as far as I'm aware, there's
Yeah.
only three in the UK, and they're mine.
Brilliant.
I
Well,
ended up
and
getting the original cockbird back as well. He ended up selling up his Avery, and I was like, I want them back. Give them back.
yeah, yeah.
So I got them
But
back.
this
Yeah.
this is the thing, you see. If the UKBC had never become, would anybody have known about those birds?
No. And the funny
No.
thing is, I actually took one of my adult German fallow rainbows to show, and this, I can't remember, I think it was Hereford, that I went to the
Yeah.
BS show, and they didn't know what they were looking at. They had
Yeah.
no idea,
No.
no
No.
idea what it was. And
No.
in the end, I ended up losing to a standard light green, which didn't go down too well.
And what class was that? What was that in?
It was just I think it was just the BOC, Budgie colour, and it was just
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
I wasn't too familiar. I'm not too familiar with the show side of things. I know it came first in something, and then when all the firsts came together.
Yeah. So it won its
Like,
class. It won its
yeah,
class, and then it went up for all the other awards. Basically, it works its way up. It goes for I don't know if they do challenge certificates for those. They might not have done back then, but yeah. So yeah, it would have been
I
judged
think
for.
it went in the rares or something. I'm not too sure,
Yeah.
but yeah, it
Yeah.
did lose overall to a light
Great.
green.
Yeah. But no,
Mm.
but it's like I said, how long of the missing link been missing until UKBC came about. I don't, we'd have never have known that. We'd have never have known that bird even existed.
No.
I mean, I'm not being funny, but without asking the right people, would you have known what you've bred?
No, I wouldn't have done.
No,
No.
no.
No,
So
and that, I mean, this was many, many years ago, the first German fellow. It was about 2 years prior COVID, so 2018,
yeah,
2017, 2018. That's when I first got wind that this is what I initially had in my bloodlines.
yeah,
And then I got
brilliant.
the bird back the same year. And he actually told me he had three. He ended up with three. And then when I got there to pick the birds up, we could only find one, and I said, "Where's the other two?" And he said, "Oh, well, I had a bit of a hole in the aviary,"
Oh no.
and when you just think, "Oh
God.
no," yeah. So
Oh dear.
I got one back, the original cock bird. He's a bit beat up. He's got a bit of a cut ear, and he's got a broken
Yeah.
toe, and he's a little bit more torn and battered, but
That's
he's still
aviary life.
fertilizing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
my beautiful little haggos. Yeah, these are two that I bred recently. So we've got a nice, I think, a yellow faced cobalt there, and these were siblings. Um,
And as Hagaromas go, what are those flowers? How would you
so the one
describe
on
the
the left
flowers?
is very good quality. The flowers are quite small, the petals are quite small. The one on the right is a much better example because you can see that the flowers are much more separated on the wings. They
Yeah.
stick up a lot more, as opposed to the one on the left, which is tighter. You want longer feather and you want it standing up as much as possible. But yeah, I had these actually ready to go in the cage for us to go to show at Maidstone that was unfortunately cancelled.
Oh, right.
So
Yeah.
they were going to go to the show. Yeah.
Oh, my mouse has just died, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, look, a light green. So you do breed greens then?
Not so much anymore. Yeah, this was a few years ago. He's actually a split Texas clear body as well. Both parents no, dad is a crested, mum is a split Hagoromo or Hagoromo bred. So he came out for
Yeah.
nice crest, but he was always a poser for some reason. Every time I walked past the cage, he was in the top breeding cage on the left, and he'd just sit there and just look at me as if to say, "I'm
And
beautiful," and I know it.
in the showbirds, we'd call that showmanship, and you would breed that into your birds.
Yeah,
So the more you use that type of bird, the more showy they get.
yeah,
It's
he was
brilliant.
lovely.
Yeah. Ah, having a sleep.
Yes, and this bird gave me a heart attack.
I bet.
I would just walk past, and it was like that, and I was like, "Wake up, wake up!" You tap it, and he was just out for the count. And then eventually, I mean, I took a picture, and I was because I had an inkling he was asleep, and I kind of reached my hand in and poked him a little, and he kind of sprang up,
Yeah.
shocked to see me. But yeah, he was sound asleep,
Yeah.
sound asleep on the
And
floor.
funny enough, I just looking at that. I don't know whether you've seen Kevin's post about wing types, type one, type two.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So that gives us a really good definition. I'm assuming, Kevin, you'll have to put
Type
me
one.
right that that's a type one or a
Yeah, I
type
believe so.
two.
I
Type
think it's
one,
type one. Yeah,
right? Because it's down to the definition, isn't it, on the edges?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And do you think you're going to use some of that in your breeding? Are you going to look at the wing? I know he's got some test pairs up, hasn't he?
Yeah, eventually. I mean, I think this actually might be a type this is a type two. The type ones is a little bit more defined.
Crisp. Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
thought. I wasn't sure whether it was the edge or the black, but that just looks sort of slightly
Yeah,
misty, slightly, you know.
yeah, yeah, I believe this is a type two, but I've got one Hagoroma that's a type one, and he always stood out to me because the markings were
Yeah.
crisp. They were
I
perfect.
can imagine. I can imagine trying that with something like the Spangles to get that
Mm.
definition of markings.
Yeah, I mean, he's
Thing.
a normal, but every hen I've given him, he's just turned his nose up at. So,
Oh,
yeah.
needs a good talking to.
Yes, he does. Yeah, this one was interesting because the parents of that one were a Spangle dominant pied and a normal split for opaline. Now, I've had these markings come out on birds like this before when you pair up, when you get a mix of dominant pied and recessive pied.
Yeah.
So I'm not actually sure. I've got a hen that's very similar to this. She's a crested. She's not a Haggeroma, she's a crested. But she gets these markings through her wings. Um, and it doesn't really identify as a recessive pied or a dominant pied. It almost shares characteristics of both.
Yeah. Now I don't know whether I've been given wrong information, but I thought there was a possibility that the odd-eyed pieds are a mixture of both.
Quite possibly.
So I don't know whether that one's got odd eyes,
At the
one with
time, I
an
mean, he's
iris,
only a
and
youngster at the time, so there's no way to tell. There's no iris
that
development.
this was the one you posted the other week, wasn't it?
Yes,
And
it
I
was.
asked the
Yeah.
same question. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'd be interesting as he develops to see if he gets an iris in one and not an iris in the other eye.
Yeah, I mean, he was snapped up immediately. I've got a very long waiting list for the Haggeromos, so I
Yeah.
have to be very selective about what I keep and who I keep from. So if I've already kept enough from that particular pairing, I have to let the others go because
Yeah.
otherwise you end up flooded with the same bloodline.
Yeah.
So he was one that went, but I will follow up in sort of
Yeah.
6 months to a
So
year down the line.
looking at the sear on that photo, I'd have thought it was a hen, but you know your birds better than
Yeah, oh,
photos.
I hope it's not a hen.
No, but it just looks dark in the center. But
Yeah.
yeah,
There's a lot of melanin that you get in the Haggeromos as well that
yeah,
tends to stain the beak, and you get the colour sort of merging in with the cere as well. But
yeah.
I'm pretty
And what
sure that was a cockbird when he left me.
and what
Fingers
color
crossed.
was it, that one? Because it's got,
Violet.
oh,
Yeah,
was a
you can't really
golden
see.
face violet, I suppose, is it?
Yeah, you can't really see. Unfortunately, my phone is terrible for it. I'll
Ah,
have double
right.
factor violets and they'll be, sort of tinky winky purple. And if you see any of my vlogs, I'm referring to sort of Palmer violet colour or tinky winky purple colour, just to kind of give an idea to people watching what they're actually seeing. But for some
Yeah.
reason my phone just doesn't pick it up. So
Right.
don't ever get an Oppo.
Now, this, this,
Yeah,
this, I don't know how one mutation can take a hobby by
by
storm.
storm. Mm,
It just, I
they have
thought,
gone
I just
crazy.
don't get it. It's they are growing on me, and I tell you what, the ones that are growing, and Kevin will be chuckling on to himself when he hears this, is the fallows.
Mm.
I think it must be the English fallows they're growing on me, and so are these. But yeah, I just, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean I got two visual cockbirds last year. And then I think it was a split hen with one of them.
Yeah.
And
Are they
I
dominant? Are they dominant in breeding?
no, it's a recessive.
Oh, it's recessive. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
so you have to have visual splits
Yeah.
to pair. So I had a visual blue cockbird and the hen that he came with, which was a split hen. She was very young. And then I think I acquired a green or something and ended up with basically breeding my first clutch that was visual greens that
Yeah.
was split for blue. And it was paired a visual to a split. So it's
Yeah.
one of those things. You've got a chance of getting visuals, you've got a chance of getting splits.
Yeah.
But he was from this one was from my most recent, and the thing that you want to breed in with these black wings is you want a nice clear chest. A lot of them come out with a speckle in.
Right.
The original black wings had no throat spots either, so there's a lot of people that are focusing on breeding and making sure that they've got no throat spots,
Oh,
and a
right.
nice clear chest as well.
Yeah. Yeah. A budgie has throat spots, doesn't it?
Mm.
No, I can imagine it reverting back to original, I suppose, which would be throat spots. But again, makes me wonder whether the type 1, type 2 wings will make a difference to the black wings.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
At the
Yeah.
moment, for me, it's just breeding in numbers now. Just
Yeah.
because there's just not that many of them around. There's not many breeders. They are gaining in popularity, so I am kind of, communicating with other people that are breeding them.
Yeah.
And we're kind of helping each other out. Ricky's been a massive help regarding the black wings because he's
Yeah.
he's helped me out with a lot of black wings visuals and
But that's the
splits.
thing. I mean, and again, you know, we're putting the missing link in touch with other people. You
Yeah,
know,
absolutely. Yeah.
Ricky shows the standard birds as well.
Mhm.
You know, but all of a sudden we've got this huge pool of birds that have been just hidden for
Yes.
too long. You know,
Yes.
and even there's aviary people. Lady lives next, not far from me. You know, she's got amazing. She's got black wings. She's got all
It's
sorts. You
mad.
know, and
And they're like hidden gems.
yeah,
You just there
yeah,
isn't the community there. I've
no,
been breeding for about 10 years now, and I started keeping birds, I think it was 11 or 12 years ago, and I was completely on my own.
yeah,
I started off with the common pairs, with your dominant pieds and some normals and things like that, and then ever so slowly I started to save a little bit of money from the offspring and buy some rarer birds, and here we are now with the black wings 10 years later.
yeah.
So
So is there anything you avoid? What mutations would you avoid with the black wings?
no, I don't avoid anything. I'm quite controversial in the fact that I've bred split black wing spangles and all sorts. I mean, at the moment, I'm trying to focus on keeping them what they are. I don't want any, other
Yeah,
mutations popping out. I think if you're going to branch off into black wing spangles, black wing recessive pieds, and that sort of thing, you have to be very careful about how you secure and keep that bloodline, because you
yeah,
don't want it starting to creep outwards, and then before you know it, your entire black wing flock is just a mix of everything.
yeah, yeah. I
I
think
know there's recessive pieds in
you
there.
need a nucleus family line, don't you?
Yeah, you've got to keep very strict record keeping if you're going to start merging into and branching out into different varieties of the black wing. For me, I'm just trying to keep for the moment, because I've actually lost a couple of my black wings. I'm trying to just create numbers in your standard normal and
Yeah,
opaline. But I know that some of them are split for German fallow as well. So another friend, she's ended up with a cinnamon black wing.
yeah,
So for me, I've got so many projects going on at the moment. I'm actually trying to create a blackwing hagoromo, and then rainbow hagoromos as well. So
yeah,
you have to, when you're creating a project, you have to keep so many offspring, because you need to grow them up. Birds pass away.
yeah,
So if you put all your eggs into one basket on one or two birds, and you lose those birds, and you start from scratch. But then you have to have unrelated pairs, so you have to do it again and again, and then you bring,
yeah,
so you end up with so many birds for one project. You have to be so careful about what you're keeping.
yeah.
So
No. So I think I was talking to Steph the other day, and I mean, she wants to breed the fallow Hagaroma as
yeah,
well, which I can imagine that being quite a pretty bird. So
oh
no, it's
definitely.
good.
Yeah.
They,
Yeah, so this is little Texas clearbody hen.
yeah,
Yeah,
they were really popular again for a long time, weren't they?
they still
You know?
are. They
Yeah,
still are. I've got a lot of people waiting for Texas clearbodies as well.
yeah,
Especially the boys, because obviously it being sex linked, unless you're breeding and you know what you're breeding, you might get, if you're lucky, a Texas clearbody hen pop out if you've got a split cock bird somewhere that you didn't know about. But to get the boys, you've got to have, a split or visual
yeah,
cock TCB paired to a visual hen. So
yeah,
you have to breed them correctly. You have to know your mutations to breed them. So of course, as soon as I get Texas clearbody boys, everyone everyone
yeah,
wants them. But
yeah,
this is a hen that I kept, and her dad is actually split exhibition. So he was half exhibition and half pet type. The granddad was an
yeah,
exhibition bred to a pet. So we've kind of gone down. But she was the only one that kind of had a bit of a blow on her head. So I've
yeah.
got pictures of her sort of sitting there, and she had the showmanship, like you said earlier.
Yeah.
Every time I got the camera out, she would blow and she would sit there and she'd pose. And I thought, you're staying with me. Yeah, you're staying.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so that was my first ever bred in my bird room, German fallow rainbow. And it's really interesting because looking at the birds, you just wouldn't know that it was rainbow. I've had
no,
these in show cages next to rainbows, and people were like, and I said, they're exactly the same. The only difference being that this bird is a German fallow, and the body dilution is up to 75%. So
Yeah.
it kind of at this age where the birds are, paler in comparison anyway to their mature, sort of like the mature other birds. Once they've hit a year, you've got your mature molting. The
Yeah.
babies are always a lot paler. So this bird, it could almost be mistaken for a lacewing, you
Yeah, I
know.
must admit, I mean, apart from seeing it, that the eye is much redder
Mm,
than a lacewing, I don't know what I would. I'd have said it was fallow,
yeah.
but so are you saying it's clearwing as well?
Yeah, it's clearing opaline.
Right.
Yeah, it's a sky blue version, so it's a golden face. I think it's golden
Yeah.
face, sky blue, opaline clearwing. Um,
Wow.
but this was just the product of about 4 years of project
Yeah.
trying to carefully breed the German fallow together because I only had the one cockbird that
Yeah.
started it all off, and he was getting on a bit, and then I had the original cockbird from a friend who had actually bred, but obviously they were from an incestuous sort of pairing, brother and sister pairing. So
Yeah.
I had to be really, really careful. So you end up having to breed to other rainbows and then, keep those, and you don't know which ones split because I think it's like a 50-50 chance or something like that. And then you have to test breed those birds back, to a new family. And you go through, like you say, you go through so many birds. There's so much wastage because you just don't know what genes
No.
are hidden. So it took about 4 years, and I hit the jackpot, and I got my
Yeah.
first. So
And I mean, are they breeding? If you put two visuals together, are you breeding?
still working on it.
Because
Still
I'm
working on
trying to
it.
think how it works. If you put two visuals together, you must be able to breed a percentage of
Yeah,
rainbow
so obviously
fallows.
clear wing is recessive. You've got opaline, which is sex linked.
Yeah.
You've got German fallow, which is recessive. So you're almost making, you're putting all these mix of mutations together, and you've got certain percentages in the offspring.
Yeah.
And you've just got to hit the nail on. You've got to hit it on one
Yeah.
bird. I think there was like 14 and a test pairing, and I got one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's
I suppose
three.
like anything, the more you breed like to like, I wonder
Mm.
if it gets stronger in its breeding.
Yeah, I
Or
mean, this is going to be a few years yet project for me because I unfortunately I lost the original
yeah.
cockbird. He got old, and he passed away. So I have got a load of splits flying around. I've marked them all with leg bands. Depending, we're trying to focus on quality as well, but at the moment it is a case of just getting the family lines
Yeah.
established before you
Yeah.
start worrying about the clarity on the wings. Um, so this is the same bird molted out. So yeah, she was a golden face.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'd look at the cheek spots and you'd say, oh mate, that's a grey wing, because it's a grey as opposed to a navy. But it's the German fallow that dilutes it down, and you can see in
Yeah.
the body colour as well. Her face is really, really intense. And actually, when the light shines on her underbelly, she has almost like it looks like a suffusion, like you'd see in an albino. She has that blue sheen
Yeah.
through the underbelly. Yeah, just very unusual. She was actually the one that I took to show, and the judges didn't know what she was.
No. No. Amazing.
Yeah.
Punk rocker.
Yeah, so this is the triple crest